Have you ever looked someone dead in the eye, someone who hurt you, and thought, do you actually know what you just did to me? And what makes this crazier is you can see it for a split second. That flicker, the micropause, the moment where their face changes, like, oh, she caught that. And then nothing. No apology, no ownership, zero remorse. Just confidence, even attitude, and entitlement. So let me ask you a question that might hit you right in the chest. How can someone know they're guilty and still act like they're innocent? Good question. Because if you've been stuck in that loop, replaying conversations, second-guessing your own memory, wondering if you're too sensitive, this is going to bring you a kind of relief that's hard to describe until you feel it. By the end of this video, you're going to understand three things clearly. First, do narcissists actually know they're guilty? Do they know what they do? Second, if they know, why don't they apologize, take responsibility, or change? And third, what do they do instead once they realize they've been caught? And I want you to hear me on this. This isn't about learning more narcissism facts. This is about getting you out of confusion, because confusion is the prison and clarity is the door. I've worked with so many high-achieving women, smart, empathetic, self-aware women who can run companies, raise families, hold everything together. But one relationship can turn them into anxious detectives, constantly analyzing tone, innuendo, rereading texts and emails over and over again, trying to figure out what's real. One client told me, I don't even want revenge. I just want to know whether or not I'm crazy. And when she finally unpacked what was happening, she said something I'll never forget. Oh my God, it's not that he doesn't understand. It's that he refuses to be accountable. That one shift right there changed everything for her, because then it stopped being, how do I explain it better? And it became, how do I protect myself better? So let's talk about that. But first, if you're listening to this and you're thinking, I need help untangling what's happening to me because I'm stuck ruminating over the details. I'm carrying it in my mind and my body. I've got you. I offer a private consultation call where we can look at your specific pattern, what you've been through, what you keep replaying, and what boundaries you need to rebuild so you can feel stable, calm, safe, and self-led again. If that sounds like something that you need, you can apply for a free one-on-one consultation call by using the link in the description below this video. No pressure, just an opportunity to discuss how you can get the support you need. Now, let's get into the truth of the matter. Question number one is the one that haunts people the most. Do narcissists actually know the impact of what they do? Do they know they're guilty? People ask me this all the time. And the shocking truth is, they do know. Now, not in the way you know, not with full empathy and genuine remorse, but in a very specific, self-protective way. The issue isn't whether or not they know. Again, they know. The issue is they don't care. Let me say it like this. Narcissistic people know full well when they've crossed a line, but they don't relate to that line the way a healthy person does. A healthy person feels guilt and thinks, oh, I did something wrong. A narcissistic person is far more concerned with how they look than they are the negative impact their attitudes and behavior have on you. So when they realize they've crossed a line, their first thought is, this makes me look wrong. That is a completely different internal experience, because for them, guilt is not primarily about your pain. Guilt is about threat. Threat to their image, threat of exposure, the threat of losing control, threat to their story. of themselves. So yes, they know, and you can usually tell by what happens the very moment you confront them. Watch for the split second before the guard goes up and the performance starts. That's the moment they realize, oh, she sees me. She's on to me. And then immediately they go into self-protection mode. Not self-reflection, protection. Here's what this looks like. You bring up something specific they did or said. You're calm, you're factual, and for a second, there's a pause. They might blink faster, they might smirk, they might look away. They might get weirdly still because for one split second, their brain is scanning for the fastest escape route. Not the most honest response, the fastest and easiest escape route. And this is why you can feel so disoriented, because you're speaking from reality and integrity, and they're responding from strategy, manipulation, and deception. So if you've ever walked away from a conversation thinking, wait, what just happened? It's because you were trying to connect, repair, and resolve, and they were trying to win. And you may be thinking, but are they consciously doing it? Yes. Now, sometimes it's calculated, sometimes it's habitual and automatic, like a reflex they've used for decades. But either way, the effect on you is the same. You're left holding the emotional weight, and they walk away acting as if they're untouched. That doesn't mean you imagined it. It means you're dealing with a different operating system. When you're dealing with a narcissist, you're dealing with someone lacking in empathy and conscience. You have it, they don't. So it's never going to be a level playing field. They play the game of life by a different set of rules, no matter what they say or how they may pretend otherwise. And it's vitally important that you remember that. I remember once having a conversation years ago with someone who had done something incredibly hurtful. And for once, I wasn't emotional. I wasn't yelling, defending myself, or trying to convince them of anything. I simply laid out the facts calmly. And I'll never forget what happened next. For a split second, there was a flicker, the pause, that look that said, oh, not, I didn't understand, not, I'm legitimately confused, not, I had no idea, just, oh. Like they suddenly realized they had been seen. And in that tiny moment, I knew, they knew exactly what I was talking about. But then, almost instantly, the wall went up. The facial expression changed, the excuses started, the blame shifting started, the rewriting of history started. And I remember walking away from that conversation realizing something that changed my life. The issue wasn't that they didn't understand. The issue was that they didn't want to be held accountable. And their fundamental makeup is such that they will avoid accountability at all costs, no matter the impact on me. And once I understood that, I stopped wasting so much energy trying to explain, trying to be heard and understood. And I raised the standard in my life in terms of who has access to me and who doesn't. Which brings me to question number 2. And this one's hard because the truth is, this is where your heart probably breaks a little or a lot. If they know they're guilty, why don't they apologize, take responsibility, or change? Now, I want you to imagine something for a second. Imagine a person who experiences accountability like humiliation, not like growth, humiliation. That's the key. For a healthy person, accountability is uncomfortable, but it's cleansing, freeing, empowering even. It's like, I hate that I did that. I'm sorry. I'm going to do better. And then we move on and do better. Pretty simple. But for a narcissistic person, accountability can feel like annihilation. Like, if I admit this, I lose power, I lose status, I lose the upper hand, and I lose the story that I love so much, the story that positions them as superior, better than. So what do? Well, they do and say whatever it takes to protect their ego. They do and say whatever it takes to protect the false image and identity they're desperate to maintain. They do and say whatever it takes to protect the mask, the false persona. And this is why you get behaviors like gaslighting. They deny, they deflect, they minimize, they rewrite history, they act confused, they pretend they don't remember. They may even act hurt, as if they are the victim. And my personal favorite? They get offended that you even brought it up. Like your feelings or your pain are such an inconvenience. Your memory is an accusation for the narcissist, and according to them, a false one at that. And this is where Darvo comes in. They deny, attack, reverse victim offender, meaning you come to them hurt and somehow you end up apologizing, or at least that's the plan. That's what they're going for. You come to them with something they actually did, and if they have their way, you'll leave questioning yourself, your tone, or the legitimacy of your experience, your own perception of reality. Again, if they have their way, if they can succeed in gaslighting you. You come to them wanting repair, and they make you the villain for wanting basic respect. And if you've experienced this, I need you to hear this clearly. That dynamic is no accident. It's a system. It's a way to avoid responsibility while maintaining control. It's a pattern of behavior you don't want to ignore. So, what do? Well, let me simplify this for you. Imagine what it would feel like for you, just for a moment, to stop trying to extract an apology or any degree of accountability from someone who is completely invested in never giving you one. Not because you don't deserve it, you do, but because chasing it keeps you tied to the same emotional trap. And here's another hard truth. Sometimes they don't apologize because they genuinely believe they are entitled. Entitled to behave any way they like. Entitled to your automatic forgiveness. Entitled to you sucking it up and staying silent just to keep the peace. And entitled to access to you. Entitled to a relationship with you with zero accountability for their maladaptive behavior. That's why you can see something that looks like a nanosecond of guilt flash across their face when they realize they're caught out. And then, just like that, they act confident, smug even. Because for them, the goal is never repair. The goal is avoidance and dominance, control, and the maintaining of the illusion of superiority. At the very least, it's always going to be about escaping consequences. Narcissists don't like consequences, no matter how appropriate. I remember one client who told me in nearly 4 decades of marriage, her husband had never, not once, apologized to her. She spent years waiting for an apology, not because she wanted to punish him, not because she needed to win the right fight. She simply wanted acknowledgement. She wanted him to look her in the eye and say, "You're right, I did that, and I'm sorry." That was it. But year after year, it never came. Instead, there were excuses, justifications, blame shifting, and endless conversations that went absolutely nowhere. Then one day during one of our sessions, she got very quiet and she said, "Oh my God, I've been waiting for him to apologize as proof that what happened to me was real." And that was the breakthrough, because she suddenly realized she didn't need his honesty or accountability to validate her reality. She knew what happened. She knows what she's lived. She knows the truth. And once she stopped waiting for him to give her permission to trust herself, she was finally free to move forward. Now, if you're listening to this and you're thinking, this is exactly what I've been living through, and you want support rebuilding your inner confidence and boundaries so you stop getting pulled into the chaos, drama, and trauma of it all, book a call with me. We'll look at your specific situation and I'll help you get clear on what's happening, what's not going to change, and what you can do next to protect your peace. The link is in the description below this video. And that leads us to question number 3. Now, this is the one that creates the adrenaline rush in your body because you've seen it, you've lived it on repeat. The things narcissists do when they realize they've been caught and they know they're guilty. When a narcissist realizes they've been exposed and they can't easily talk their way out, there are a handful of very predictable moves they'll make. And I want you to listen to these carefully, because once you can name the game at play, you stop getting caught up in it. You stop being so terribly affected by it. Here are the most common things they do. First, they'll often go into immediate rage or at the very least contempt. Now, not always a screaming rage. Sometimes it's cold, it's sarcastic, sometimes it's the clenched jaw and the look. You know, the look that says you're beneath them. Because when they're caught, they immediately feel shame. And shame for a narcissist is unbearable. So they instantly convert shame into anger, because anger feels powerful, whereas shame feels like exposure. And nothing terrifies a narcissist more than the threat of exposure. So if you've ever confronted them with something undeniable and suddenly they're furious and now you're being attacked, that's not because you came at them wrong. It's because you hit a nerve that threatened their mask. Next, they'll often pivot into victim mode. And this can be wild to observe. You'll be talking about something they did, and within minutes, you're comforting them. They'll bring up your tone, their childhood, their stress, how hard things have been. And listen, people can have real trauma and still be responsible for their behavior. Trauma does not automatically cancel accountability. But this move is designed to do one thing: hijack the emotional focus of the conversation and use your empathetic nature against you. Because if you're soothing them, you're not holding them accountable. See how that works? In addition, they'll try to confuse you with word salad. Circular, mind-bending, crazy-making conversations, never-ending arguments, technicalities, semantics. Suddenly, you're not talking about the betrayal, the abandonment, or the neglect. You're talking about the definition of a word you used, or the timestamp, or whether you also did something 3 months ago or 3 years ago. It's exhausting. And that exhaustion is absolutely part of their strategy. They deliberately wear you down because a tired person is easier to manipulate, dominate, dupe, deceive, and control. A tired person will more easily drop the subject out of sheer exhaustion and self-preservation. A tired person will get to the point where it's just not worth it. Now, something else the narcissist does when they know they're guilty is they disappear. They'll use the silent treatment, stonewalling, blocking, vanishing for days. And make no mistake, this is punishment. It's also a reset button, because when they return, which they always do, they'll act like nothing happened and expect you to do the same. And if you don't, you'll be called bitter, resentful, and unforgiving. If you bring it up again, you're only starting drama. And when all else fails, they'll resort to love bombing. This is the one that messes with good, kind-hearted women the most, because you may think, wow, they finally get it. The narcissist will feign remorse. Not exactly, but just enough to get your attention. They'll send long texts and/or emails. They'll promise change, maybe even therapy. They'll say everything you've waited years to hear. And I'm not saying people can't change. Relatively sane, healthy, well-adjusted people can. People who have the capacity for self-reflection, radical responsibility, and honesty absolutely can. But real, lasting change requires a few things. Real change includes consistency. Real change includes repair. Real change includes accountability, without you having to drag it out of them. Real change isn't just words. It's backed up by amended attitudes and behavior, consistently, reliably, predictably, over time. So here's the question you want to ask yourself. Is this genuine remorse or manipulation? Is this a genuine living amends, or is this a strategy just to regain access to me? Because love bombing, after being caught, when they know full well they're guilty, is nothing more than a manipulative strategy designed to re-hook you. It's not about healing you, your pain, or the relationship. So remember that before you start falling for the dog and pony show. And then finally, one of the most damaging and painful things a narcissist will do when they know they're guilty is they'll launch a smear campaign. If they can't control you, they'll definitely work to control how other people see you, how they feel about you. They'll create the narrative that you're unstable. They'll imply, at the very least, that you're obsessed, unhinged, or the abusive one in the dynamic. And if you're a high integrity woman with empathy and a conscience, a heart and soul intact, that can feel unbearable. Because naturally, you want to be seen for who you actually are. You want to be understood. You want to be fair, and you'd like to tell your side. But you can't logic your way out of someone else's manipulation. And you certainly can't control who decides to believe the nonsense and align with the narcissist. What you can do, however, is anchor into your truth and do your own work. Raise your standards, strengthen your boundaries, surround yourself with a solid support system, allies, real allies, people who get it, and then choose aligned distance, whatever that looks like for you. Let me say that again. You cannot force a person like this into honesty, integrity, accountability, or responsibility. But you can stop putting your hand up and volunteering for emotional and psychological abuse. You can stop offering up your nervous system as a place to hold the battlefield. You can stop allowing your vital life force energy to be drained and depleted by a toxic bully or emotional manipulator, someone who feels entitled to hurt you and then blames you for the very real hurt that they cause. That's the shift. That's where your power comes back. I remember a time in my own life when I was caught in that exact loop. I would bring something up, they'd deny it, I'd explain it differently, they'd twist and distort it, I'd provide more evidence and examples, they'd move the goalposts, and before long, we weren't even talking about the original issue. We were talking in circles. And every single time I walked away feeling exhausted, manipulated, and violated. Not because the conversation was productive. It wasn't. But because I was carrying the entire emotional weight of it. The entire emotional weight was being dumped on me. All of the blame, all of the shame, dumped on me. Then one day, something clicked. I realized that every single conversation started differently, but ended exactly the same. And that's when I stopped asking myself, how do I get them to understand? And instead started asking, what boundary do I need to set to protect myself? My peace of heart, my peace of mind, my dignity and integrity. Answering that question changed everything. Now, I want to land this for you in the most impactful way possible, because I know what you really want. You don't just want to understand what in the actual bleep is going on with this person. You want closure. You want the internal conflict to end. You want the pain to stop. You want to stop waking up at 3 a.m. twisting about the last conversation. So here's the reframe that I found helps my clients the most. The question isn't, do they know? Do they know they're guilty? They know. The important question is, what does their response to guilt tell me about what's safe for me, good for me? Because whether they know or not, if they punish you for speaking up, for telling the truth, for sharing your heart, if they rewrite reality, make you pay for having standards, if they make you wrong for setting limits and boundaries, that tells you everything you need to know. Not just about their destructive personality pattern, but about your next step. You are not crazy. You are not too sensitive. The real issue? You've been trying to build emotional safety with someone who experiences emotional safety as a threat to control, as a threat to their false image. And if that sentence just made your whole life make sense, good. That's clarity. And clarity changes what you tolerate. It's time now. If you're ready to stop mentally spiraling, getting trapped in a loop of intrusive thoughts over what it is that they did and said, and instead start rebuilding the kind of internal boundaries that make you unshakable so you can trust yourself again, choose yourself again, and finally feel peaceful and confident again, apply for a free one-on-one consultation call with me. We'll get clear on what happened, what patterns you may be stuck in, and what it looks like to step into a self-led, emotionally calm, steady, and grounded version of yourself without needing anyone else to validate your experience or your perception of reality. The link is in the description below. And if this video gave you language for something you've lived through, stay with me. You're not alone in this, and you don't have to figure it out the hard way anymore. Watch this video next to learn 8 ways to make a narcissist respect you.